Hey everybody, welcome back. So this week is going to be great because we're going to focus on two things. We're going to create a line chart together and we're going to have a deeper dive into Dropdown. The first video we had a couple of weeks ago was a pie chart with Dropdown, but that was only the introduction to Dropdown. Here we're going to cover almost all the properties of Dash by Plotly Dropdown component. And we're going to create this line chart which represents data, real data from New York City about restaurant inspections. So we're going to look into inspections from January 2016 all the way to the end of 2019, so 3 or 4 years. And we're going to look at the 3 restaurants, well, all restaurants, but we can choose 3 restaurants with these drop downs. And we're going to compare between the negative points of inspection that each one got. So for example, here we see that African cuisine, that combine all restaurants that define themselves as African cuisine, have a little bit higher negative point values or negative inspections compared to Asian and compared to donut restaurants or donut cuisines. All right, so don't forget to open the links that are below the video under the description. The links will help you follow along because we're going to see all the documentation and the code and the data. In addition to that, we also have in the description below an opportunity to jump to different parts of the video. Once you've seen all the video, if you want to go back to a certain section, there's a link there with a certain time and the title so you can go and see whatever you want. So you don't have to watch everything all over again. All right, so the data. Let's go into the data first. The data that you can download from the Google Share document that I added below the video is this. We are going to focus on it. This is real data, so this is very exciting. It's from New York City. We're going to focus on the cuisine description. We're going to focus on the inspection date. And we're going to use the score. These are the scores of the inspector that they give to the restaurants. It could be the higher the score, the more negative it is. The lower the score, the better, because these are kind of like negative points. And we're going to use Camis just at the very beginning because this is an ID for every restaurant. So it helps filter the data and make sure that we don't have duplicates. All right, so just make sure you download this Excel sheet. All right, so this is the code. I'm using these versions of Panda, this 4.5 version of Plotly, and Dash. I'm using 1.8.0. It should work with other versions as well, but if not, you can always make sure that your environment has these versions. And then here I'm importing all the libraries that we will need. So in order to start the Dash app, which is an interactive is a tool to create interactive web apps, all in Python. You have to use this line of code, and this is how we start it. And in this section, we're going to go into the filtering of the data, or at least cleaning the data a little bit. So I'm not going to go line by line here, but you can play around with it once you have the code. This code, here I'm downloading the Excel sheet into a Pandas data frame. Here I'm just changing the inspection date in the Excel sheet to Pandas date time element so I can play around with it. And then I'm going to group by those 3 columns that I talked about, the cuisine description, African, Asian, American. There's like 80 different cuisines. I'm going to group by the inspection date, and then I'm going to take the average score for each date for each cuisine, and then I'm going to make sure that I just take between these dates, January 2016 to the end of 2019, because there's years before that and after that. And then I'm going to group by month. I'm going to make sure that I want to do a monthly plot, not daily and not weekly, because it's just going to be too big of a chart. So that's it. If you unhash this like this and you print it, you will see this right here below. So this is what we come up with. We have an inspection date, 2016, the cuisine description, and the average score for each cuisine. Each cuisine has multiple hundreds, maybe thousands of restaurants, but we're just taking the average score for each cuisine. So it's going to be American, Asian, pretzels, bakery, tea. There's probably 80 or 90 different cuisines, unique cuisines there. All right, so that's the data. Now we're going to go into the layout. Oh, but before I go into the layout, I forgot, I wanted to tell you this at the very beginning. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe below and make sure to like this video if you like this video, because this will allow you, by subscribing and turning on your notification, will allow you to receive a notification of the next video that will come out next week, and actually subsequently every week, about Dash by Plotly and different cool graphs and charts that you can create. All right, so let's go into the layout. So in the first section of the layout, which is actually the web page, how it's going to look like, we're going to put the graph, just an ID for now. There's nothing in there, but later we're going to put something in there, and that's going to be 9 columns. I'm using a CSS sheet that we'll go into later. So this is going to be on the left side. We have a total of 12 columns. This is going to be 9 columns. And this next section, this div, is where we have the 3 drop downs. This is going to be a total of 3 columns. So this is going to be on the right side. All right, so as you can see in this section, we have 3 drop downs. We have cuisine number 1 is the ID, cuisine number 2, and cuisine number 3, because I am going to have the user choose 3 different cuisines from each drop down. 1, 2, 3. All right. This is really like 90% of all the drop down properties that Dash has. So we're going to go into each and every one of them, but we'll do that later. We're going to create the chart first, and then we're going to go into the drop down. Just, I want you to pay attention to this. These are the options that the drop down has. These are the options that you see here: African, American, Armenian, and they're alphabetized. And that is because we did this. We're doing a list comprehension, and we're saying for X in, I'm going to sort the cuisine description so they're alphabetized, and I'm going to take the cuisine description column, and I want to only take the uniques. So there's multiple American, multiple Asian. I only want them once. And then I'm going to put them into this dictionary of label and value, because this is how the option parameter is built. It's built out of dictionary of label and value. All right, so we're going to go into all this later. Same thing I'm doing here, the second drop down, and the same thing I'm doing here for the third drop down. Just options of all the cuisines that we can choose. All right, so the callback. The callback is a way to allow us to connect what the user chooses online or on the web app with the graph that we want to spit out, in this case, the line chart. So we're going to take the 3 drop downs. In the inputs, we have 3 different inputs: the cuisine 1, which is a component ID of the first drop down, cuisine 2, the second drop down, and cuisine 3. And then we're going to take their value, is the component property. This could be something else. In this case, we want their value. We want to see what they choose. So the component property of the first drop down is a value. Right here, see, value. In this case, it's African by default, Asian, and the next one is another one. So we're going to take the values of each one of them, and we're going to build all this information, take this information, and we're going to build a figure within our graph component ID, within the first section of the div right above. All right. So in order to do that, we have to define a function. I'm going to call this function buildGraph. And as you know by now, if you've seen the videos before, we need 3 arguments because we have 3 inputs. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to call this first cuisine, second cuisine, and third cuisine. And inside, I'm going to filter the data in order to create the line chart. So why do I need this? Why do I need to filter the data? Because remember when I showed you before, this has the data that we have from way up here that we played around with the data frame. After this point, when we printed this, is all the cuisines. We're grouping by, we have the average score, which is what we need, but we still, for every cuisine, but what the problem is we have like 80, 90 cuisines. We only want 3 because we only have 3 drop downs. So what I have to do is say to the app, take the information from the drop downs, from their values right here, and filter the data so the data frame has a value description that is equal to the first cuisine chosen, let's say it's African, and also to all the rows that have a cuisine chosen, a cuisine description that is, let's say, Asian, and whatever the third cuisine is. So we're only going to have 3 different values that are unique values for this column of cuisine description. So all the other cuisine descriptions are not going to go in there. We're only going to have 3. And now we have the data frame that's filtered. If you unclick this, if you unhashtag this, you'll print it out. You'll see you're only going to have those 3 cuisines that the user chose or that is there by default. African, Asian, and donuts are there by default. All right, so now that we have our 3 cuisines, now we're ready to create the line chart. So you call it with Plotly Express, you call the line method, you're going to use the DFF. By the way, this is, as you can see here, this all comes from the Plotly Express webpage online, right? It's right here in Site. You can go to Plotly Express High Level and then choose the line graph, and this is what you get. And these are all the parameters. Play around with these. Please make sure you know all your parameters and know what you're talking about. But we're only going to use a few of them: the X, the Y, height, below, and data frame. So the first part is a data frame. We know that we're going to use a DFF, which is a copy of this main data frame. Always make sure to make a copy of the data frame inside the function. The X, which is going to be the X-axis, is going to be the inspection date, as we said, from 2016 to 2019. The Y is going to be the score on the Y-axis. The color is going to be the cuisine description. And the color means that we're only going to have 3, since we have 3 different cuisines, 1, 2, and 3, we're only going to have 3 different colors. And that's going to be 3 different lines. And then the height, I put 600 because I want the graph to be a bit higher than what it is usual, so it covers the whole page. And then just before I finish, I'm going to have a Fig update layout. I'm going to update the title. I want the Y-axis title to be negative points and not score. It just means it's more accurate to say negative points. And I want the title to be Restaurant Inspection in NYC. This line of code is to center the title right above the graph. And this is the font. I want it to be 28 and not smaller. And then since I have my Fig and it's all updated and the data is all filtered according to the user options, I am returning the Fig itself. And remember, when you return from the function, whatever you return returns the output. So this Fig is actually going into Figure, which actually means, which makes sense because a DCC.graph component, you have the parameters or ID. Another parameter is Figure. So in this case, we're just saying Figure equals Fig, right? That is actually what is happening. All right, so that's going to go in there. And once you run it, this is what you come up with. A chart with the X-axis with the dates from 2016 to 2019 and the negative points for each cuisine. And you can change the cuisines, let's say Armenian, and the lines will change accordingly. So now Armenian is red, and now you see that there's a lot of volatility in the Armenian cuisine. And you can even zoom in and you say, I just want from January 18 to July 18 or August 18, and then you'll see all this, right? You can also zoom back out with this hover, auto scale, and you can choose compare data on hover, and now you'll have like all 3 lines in your hover every time you go above, so you can compare the dates a lot easily. Play around with this hover bar, see all the cool functions you have with it, and play around with the drop downs to see what you have. All right, so now we're going to go into the drop down. We're going to give a deeper dive into the drop down, a lot deeper than we had in our first video with pie charts and drop down. So make sure you open this link because this drop down link, part of Dash, has all the properties that we're going to go over. We're going to go over like 90% of them. All right, so here is the drop down. All right, so let's actually put this into, let's divide the screen up so it'll be easier to see. Okay, so inside the drop-down, we have different properties. Options we already went over. Those are the options of the drop-down. Value means that this is going to be by default the first value that pops into the drop-down, African, the first drop-down, as we load the page. All right, this is the first drop-down, so everything you're going to see here refers to this first drop-down, not the second or the third. Multi means false, means that I'm not allowing the user to choose 2 or 3 or 4 values. I'm just allowing them to choose one. So if they choose African, that's the only thing that's going to come up. They can't choose multiple values. Disables, I put false because I want the drop-down to function. But if I put true, I'm not going to do it right now, but if I do true and I re-executed this code, this will be blocked. I wouldn't be able to choose anything. This will not be interactive. It would always stay as African. Clearable true, that means I can clear it. This refers to the X. The other drop downs below right here, you'll see clearable is false. So they don't have this X. You can't clear it. It's either Asian or you choose something else or you choose something else. They can't clear it. Here I put X so I can clear it. So it can be empty. Searchable true. That usually means when the data is cleared, and I'm searchable true means I can search something. So I can search with my putting in something. I can say R, and then I come with Armenian, or they say BA, and it'll come up all the ones with BA, barbecue, Bangladeshi, and bakery. Okay, that means searchable. If it was false, I would not be able to search with the keyboard. Placeholder. This is also usually relevant when this is empty. Now this placeholder is going to be a string. It's always a string of choose cuisine. So kind of like it encourages or gives a tip to the user of what they should put in there. So if I clear this, or if this came with no value by default, this would say choose cuisine. Or I can say choose something now, or choose a restaurant. Whatever you want to type in there can be in there. Okay, let's change this back to African. All right, so the next property is class name. So class name refers to a CSS document. In this case, I'm using, it's a way to style your web app using CSS. Okay, it's pulling the class from a CSS document, a CSS form. So this CSS form is something that I downloaded. I think belongs to Dash by Plotly. They uploaded it. So I'm using this form, and it's also in the links below. Make sure that for this to work, for the CSS to work with your dropdown and with other Dash components, you got to make sure that it is in the assets folder. So I have a folder called Introduction Dash by Plotly. In this folder, I have my line.py, my Python code, which is this right here, everything you see here. Here I also have the data because I'm pulling it into the pandas data frame. But then I created a new file called assets, and in this file I put the CSS code, BWL, blah, 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 is right here, BWL. So this code has to go in a folder called assets. All right, so I have the CSS form right here. And part of the form, I created a class. This class from Dropdown, I named it from Dropdown, is going to change the color inside of the text inside the dropdown, and it's going to add blue dotted lines underneath. This is just an example. There's no reason for this. I actually don't really know how to do this. I don't know CSS very well, so I just looked it up in a website called stackoverflow.com or .org, and I asked, how do I do a dropdown? How do I play around with a text inside a dropdown? And this is what I got. So I just copy pasted it into the CSS document, and I saved it, and then I tied this from form dropdown, this class, I added it to the dropdown class name form dropdown as a string that refers to the class name inside the CSS document. So now if I run it, actually let's even change it. If I change it and I say instead of blue, let's put gold, you'll see I save it. And I'll run this again. So now these blue should change to gold. You see? So it changes to gold, and the text inside is orange as opposed to the regular black text color you usually get. No particular reason. Again, this is just to play around with the CSS and to play around with the style. We'll have a whole new video on CSS and how to implement CSS forms and styles within Dash components or within your web app. This is just an example. All right, and you can also play with style in addition to the CSS class. You can also play with a style by just adding stuff within the dropdown. So in this style, I'm going to add width 90%. Again, just as an example, no particular reason. And you can see 90% means that it's not as wide as the other 100% dropdowns. Persistence, we're going to say, okay, so this is the last part of the component, and this is very important. Persistent, it's all here. Let me make this bigger. And let's make this bigger again. Persistent refers to right here, the drop down right here. So this link that I shared below, this persistent as part of the drop-down properties, refers to either a string, a number, or a boolean. So it refers to the value of the drop-down. In our case, the value of the drop-down is a string. It's all the cuisine descriptions. It's all of these values right here and labels are strings, African, American, Asian. So I put this as a string. It's not a number. And then I have the persistent type. And you have three options. You have memory, you have local, and you have session. Memory, session, and local. What this is actually telling the web app to remember the data that is chosen by the dropdown, in this case, the value that is chosen by the user in the dropdown, remember it for a certain amount of time. So the first dropdown has memory. I'm going to remember it as a memory. The second one has session. And the third one, the type of memory is going to be local. All right. So what does that mean? You look at persistent type. You'll see the explanation here that memory will only be kept. The data will only be kept in memory, and it resets as the page is refreshed. The local, well, let's do session first. The session is cleared once the browser is quit. We quit the browser, and the session and the local is actually kept even after the browser is quit. So it's kept in the cookies. So what does this mean actually? So remember, the first dropdown has persistent type memory. So if I change this to American, it's going to stay American here. But once I refresh the web page, it goes all the way back to African. It doesn't stay there because it's only a memory type. But the Asian, the second dropdown, was session. And session keeps the same value. Let's say it's Afghan. No, let's put bakery. Keeps the value of bakery. You see how the blue line is bakery, even if I refresh the page. Refreshed, and it's still bakery. But it changes once you quit. So if I quit this, I'm going to copy paste so I don't lose it. Quit this, I open a new one, and I do it again. It's not going to be bakery anymore. Came back to Asian because that was a default value in my dropdown. The last one was local. This is the third and last dropdown. The default value is donuts, and the memory is local. That means that donuts is going to, if I change this to, let's say, Creole cuisine, the graph change, even if I refresh, and even if I close a tab, quit the tab, and open it again, it's still going to stay Creole. The only way to get rid of Creole is if you go into your, this is Google Chrome, is if you erase your cookies. So you go into history, and then I go to, let's say, clear browsing data, and I clear the cookies of the last hour because that's when I changed it. I'm not going to do it now, but if I did that and I refresh this, this will go back to the original value by default, which was donuts. So this is really cool and a really good thing to know, because when you play around, when you start developing web apps that are much more complex, you would want, for some cases, especially if you quit the browser or you have different tabs, you would want the user would want to have the ability to maintain the tab that they chose. They don't want to have to, if you have, for example, 10 or 20 different drop downs, you don't want the user to have to choose all the values again for all the different drop downs just because they refreshed the page or they quit the browser. So in that case, if you choose persistent type local, you wouldn't have, this would all be kept in their drop downs. It all depends on what you want to do. So there you have it. We created a cool chart. We went into a deeper dive, a very deep dive of Dropdown and Dash by Plotly, and we had a good time, or at least I hope you had a good time, and I hope you learned a lot. Tip of the week this week is to make use of the Dash by Plotly form. This is a form that we have, that Plotly has, and there's many different things in the form. They focus on Plotly or Plotly R or JavaScript. I'm focusing on Dash. You go into Dash, you can create your own account here, and there's many different questions and answers by the community. There's thousands of people that are part of this forum and help each other out. So this forum is a great tool to learn from each other, to help each other out, and to ask any questions that you might need answers for. This is my little icon here, so here I am. If you have any questions, I'm called Charming Data on this forum as well, so just look me up and I'll try and help as best as I can. But also try and help others. As you learn more and you gain more knowledge and experience, give back. Help others with their questions, give them answers, and make sure that they learn as I'm teaching you now, you can teach them. I think that's it. Don't forget to subscribe below, turn on your notifications so you can see the next videos that comes out. Like the video, tell your friends about it, and tune in for the next week's video, which is going to be a sunburst. We're going to create a sunburst graph or chart, which is something like this, and it really helps with visualizing hierarchical data structures. Have a good day. I hope you enjoyed.